Let's talk about bullying. Bullying is something that most of us have encountered to one degree or another at some point in our lives. Some of us have been a victim of bullying, some of us have been the one bullying other people. And it is something that I think we never quite understand how to address. It's something that we kind of just stumble our way through. So, in this video, I want to talk to the AI about how one might go about addressing bullying. Personally, I've dealt with bullying so many times. I think a part of it is because of my desire to always put myself in new situations. I think new situations, whether it's a new job or a new hobby, they tend to create that environment where people like to pick on you. There are two schools of thoughts on this that I think are more prevalent than the rest. And the first is to fight back. The second is basically to let it go and cower, right? That's how it's often perceived by those who think fighting back is the right approach. But I think these two alternate points of views can be quite nuanced because fighting back does not always lead to the desired results. Sometimes fighting back could cause us more trouble than it's worth. Sometimes being a coward could also cause us more trouble than it's worth. It's not always obvious what the consequences of our reaction to bullying is going to be. But I wonder, is there any way that we can frame bullying in order to make it more easier to deal with?
That's a thoughtful way to approach the topic. Bullying is complex, and the best way to address it often depends on the situation and the individuals involved. One way to frame bullying is to focus on empowerment and support rather than simply choosing between fighting back or cowering. Encouraging open communication and creating safe environments where victims can speak up is crucial. Teaching empathy and emotional intelligence in schools can help prevent bullying from happening in the first place. Additionally, conflict resolution and assertiveness training can provide individuals with the tools they need to handle bullying in a way that minimizes harm. Addressing bullying also involves holding bullies accountable while providing them with the support they need to change their behavior. Often, bullies act out due to their own issues and insecurities, so understanding and addressing the root causes can be effective. Ultimately, the goal should be to create a culture of respect and kindness where everyone feels valued and supported. What are your thoughts on these approaches?
I really wanted us to focus on the individual perspective, as in the one who's being bullied, more than what the system can do to resolve it. Because, systems are going to be good and bad to different degrees at handling bullying. Some systems seem to be more resistant to it than others. I want to focus on how an individual can address bullying. And I like that you mentioned assertiveness training, and I think you mentioned something else like communication or something like that. While I think this is a great idea, I think it's one that is more of a long-term approach, right? It takes time to train people to be assertive, and it takes experience, which can take many, many years. Is there anything that we can do in the moment? For example, if I had a kid come home to me, maybe he's a friend of mine and he's much younger than I am, he tells me that there's someone bullying him. And actually, he doesn't have to be a kid. Again, bullying runs the gamut amongst all age groups. So someone comes up to me and tells me that they're being bullied. What should I tell them? What advice would you give someone who is afraid that a bully might take advantage of them if they don't say anything, and they're also afraid that if they do say something that they're going to get in even more trouble?
That's a very practical and immediate concern. When someone is facing bullying and needs advice on handling it in the moment, here are some strategies you can suggest. 1. Stay calm and confident. Encourage them to stay calm and not show fear. Bullies often seek a reaction, so maintaining composure can sometimes diffuse the situation. 2. Set boundaries. Teach them to assertively tell the bully to stop. Simple, firm statements like, "Stop it," or "That's not okay," can be effective. The key is to be clear and direct without aggression. 3. Avoid isolation. Advise them to stay in groups or around people they trust. Bullies are less likely to target someone who is not alone. 4. Document the incidents. Encourage them to keep a record of the bullying incidents, including dates, times, and details. This can be useful if they need to report it later. 5. Seek support. Suggest they talk to someone they trust about the situation, whether it's a friend, family member, or trusted authority figure. Getting support can provide both emotional comfort and practical advice. 6. Know when to walk away. Sometimes the best immediate response is to walk away and avoid further confrontation. This shows the bully that their actions won't get the desired reaction. 7. Plan ahead. Help them think through potential scenarios and how they might respond. Having a plan can reduce anxiety and increase confidence. 8. Report the bullying. Encourage them to report the bullying to someone who can help, whether it's a teacher, supervisor, or HR department. Reporting isn't about being weak. It's about seeking support to resolve the issue. These strategies can help someone manage bullying in the moment while they work on building long-term assertiveness and communication skills. What do you think of these suggestions?
I think those are great. They sound very practical and ones that can be used immediately. I think to your point earlier, it's going to be very situational, right? Every situation is different, and the person being bullied needs to assess the situation as best as they can with whatever help that they can find in order to determine the best outcome. And if they're alone, then some of the other strategies you mentioned, like staying calm, being assertive in the moment, and immediately after, the person should try to address it in the various ways that you mentioned. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the more subtle types of bullying, the verbal bullying, where someone is basically condescending in a way that tries to put you down and kind of takes advantage of the fact that it's more difficult to articulate verbal bullying. It's more difficult to complain about that or to report it because of the difficulty in articulating it, right? This is something that I've experienced myself, where some people are so adept at this in terms of the bullies, where they are very good at basically using their words to really put you down and make you feel as though you are doing something wrong, or that you are going to get in trouble if you're not subjecting yourself to their own ego, essentially. So how do we go about dealing with the verbal types of bully?
Verbal bullying, especially when it's subtle and manipulative, can indeed be challenging to address. Here are some strategies for dealing with it. 1. Recognize it. The first step is recognizing and acknowledging that what you're experiencing is verbal bullying. Trust your feelings. If you feel consistently belittled or demeaned, it's important to validate those feelings. 2. Stay calm. Just like with physical bullying, staying calm and composed is crucial. Reacting emotionally can give the bully more power over you. 3. Assertive communication. Use I statements to express how their words affect you. For example, I feel disrespected when you talk to me that way. This approach is less likely to provoke a defensive reaction and more likely to communicate your boundaries clearly. 4. Call it out. Sometimes simply calling out the behavior can be effective. For example, saying, "That comment was unnecessary," or "I don't appreciate being spoken to like that," can put the bully on notice that their behavior isn't acceptable. 5. Use humor. Deflecting with humor can sometimes diffuse the situation and show that you aren't easily rattled. For example, responding with a lighthearted joke can take the sting out of a mean comment and demonstrate confidence. 6. Document it. Keep a record of the incidents, especially if they are recurring. Having detailed accounts can be helpful if you need to report the behavior to a higher authority. 7. Seek allies. Talk to trusted colleagues, friends, or family members about what you're experiencing. They can provide support, advice, and sometimes even intervene on your behalf. 8. Set boundaries. Be clear about what you will and won't tolerate. For example, if someone consistently makes hurtful jokes, you might say, "I don't find those kinds of jokes funny. Please stop." 9. Avoid engagement. If possible, minimize interactions with the bully. Sometimes Removing yourself from the situation or limiting contact can help reduce the frequency of bullying. 10. Report it. If the verbal bullying is happening in a workplace or school, report it to the relevant authority. Use your documentation to support your case. Verbal bullying can be insidious, but by recognizing it and responding assertively and calmly, you can start to reclaim your power and set clear boundaries. How do these strategies align with your experiences and thoughts?
One common theme that I heard between the physical and the verbal bullying that you were mentioning is assertiveness. And I really agree with this because I've had so many encounters where with bullies where without being assertive, they basically are enabled, right? They keep doing whatever it is that they're doing. Sometimes because they don't realize it, it's just their personality. Other times because they realize they smell weakness, they take that as a sign of weakness and as an opportunity to exploit even more. So regardless of that, the type of bully that it is, I think being assertive, especially with the verbal bullies, where there's not as much risk of physical consequences, I think it's more useful in those situations to be assertive and tell them what it is that you think about what they're doing and to call it out. As I was saying earlier, I think verbal bullying can be especially difficult to articulate, especially when we're reporting it, because it's not always easy. It's something that we tend to feel more than we are able to put in words. I think this is why it's especially important to address it as soon as we can, because the more time that we let pass, sometimes the time can be helpful in figuring out exactly what the person is doing and how we can go about addressing it. But other times, it's important to let the person know immediately that this is a behavior that we're not going to tolerate and that, they need to figure out a better way to communicate with you if they hope to maintain an ideal relationship with you. So I think usually people who are bullying you, whether intentionally or unintentionally, would be reflective enough to take that hint and make the necessary adjustments. Every so often, we'll meet people who are more stubborn than that. I think those are a bit fewer, but I think those are the ones that it's more necessary to escalate it, whether it's by reporting it or taking writing down some record. That way we have a clear knowledge of what happened, as opposed to letting it go hoping that it's not going to happen again and ending up forgetting some important details in the future. So I hope, based on everything that I have discussed so far, that you might be able to get something helpful out of it.
Assertiveness is indeed a key factor in addressing bullying, whether it's verbal or physical. By standing up for yourself and setting clear boundaries, you can often stop a bully in their tracks and signal that their behavior won't be tolerated. Your point about addressing verbal bullying immediately is particularly important. Waiting can sometimes give the bully more power and make it harder to articulate the issue later. Immediate, calm, and assertive responses can often diffuse the situation and set a precedent for how you expect to be treated. Also, recognizing that some bullies may not be aware of their behavior is crucial. By calling out the behavior directly and respectfully, you give them a chance to reflect and change. For those who are more stubborn or malicious, documenting and escalating the issue is essential. Your experiences in new environments highlight another important aspect: adaptability and resilience. Being new often makes you a target, but your approach to continually putting yourself in new situations shows a commendable level of courage and adaptability. It's a reminder that while bullying is never acceptable, the personal growth and resilience that come from navigating these challenges can be significant. I hope your viewers find these insights helpful and empowering in their own lives. Bullying is a complex issue, but with the right strategies and support, it can be effectively addressed.